Hello, this is Reverend Joseph Andrew Jensen again. This is a very important message for the Jews. Right now, this Rosh HaDin, okay, listen, Rosh HaDin, it's a judgment day. It's not the final judgment, not the Yom Hashanah or the Rosh Kipper, okay? It's Rosh HaDin, okay? It's the day, I guess you would say, your Messiah comes. And he'll be coming September the 21st, 2025. Okay? Now, I'm not Jesus Christ, not the Messiah, and I am not a God, and I am not a spirit. I am God's messenger. To Islam, it's Rasul Allah, okay? Or Mahdi, okay? The one that's going to bring peace to this world, okay? And you're going to quit in this day forever. Nobody will ever kill again. Nobody will ever kill somebody again. You understand? That's what you're doing wrong. This is a judgment, yes, and you're going to find out you're a religion and you've been killing. What part of the Ten Commandments didn't you understand? Thou shalt not kill. Now, you don't actually know what was going on during the day when you robbed all that gold from Khufu's pyramid, okay? Why Khufu's pyramid? Because it was the last pyramid built and it was the last pyramid robbed. It's simple process of a reason, okay? It's reason. It was the last pyramid robbed. It had to be the last, and that much gold. Khufu's pyramid just happened to have more, closed-in space than any other pyramid. Rooms, bigger rooms inside. So he carried a lot of gold. Now, what you need to know is all what the Bible says about the Exodus is wrong, except for Moses. What happened to Moses? Moses was used, but what happened to Moses is who engineered the inside of every pyramid? There's only 9 pyramids in Southern Africa, or I'll say the lower Egypt. I'm getting confused now myself. Lower Egypt. These pyramids were systematically robbed, but they were also systematically built by the Sumerians. The elite of Shem's family, the engineers, the high priests, the architects, the artists, the sculptors, they were the most talented, and they spoke the language of Sumerian. They spoke cuneiform. They wrote cuneiform. Nobody else knew cuneiform. But they kept that to themselves. While they're fixing the mechanisms that worked the pyramids in the treasure rooms, they built air shafts. In Khufu's pyramid, there was 4 air shafts, 2 to the queen's chamber and 2 to the king's chamber. Those air shafts were backfilled with sand, and granite blocks were put in to eventually slide down and block the doorways. They were systematically the way that they took ropes. They simply slid down the air shafts after these boats. They knew where the air shafts were. They went and unblocked them. They got down with the long ropes, and they slid down the air shafts to the roofs of the chambers, the king's chamber and the queen's chamber, and they took every bit of the gold out. That was the gold that would cross the Red Sea and into Sinai. You understand? But Egyptians didn't know anything about that. I mean, and neither did the Hebrews. Neither did the Semites that helped build the pyramids. All 3 groups helped build the pyramids, and none of them were slaves. Everybody was in Egypt at that time because that was the only place you had a job. That's the only place you had the resources, food, shelter. In fact, you had freedom of religion in Egypt. Okay? The fact is that you guys need to understand. The Sumerians actually went up to the low dam. There was waterfalls on the Nile. And the low dam, which is going south on the Nile River, was waterfall. Today it is locks. Back then it was locks, where the barges had to be raised and lowered in a lock in order to reach different levels, rather than going down 20 or 30 feet. Okay, that lock system's in Edfu, Egypt. Then there's a high dam. That was the big waterfall. That's with like 150, feet drop. That's a big drop. Okay, and that big drop became the high dam. And the high dam, during the days of Sumerians, were the ones that created the first high dam in Aswan, the Aswan Dam. They used red clay. They're known for red clay, even purple clay, all kinds of colors, but they used the red clay, the most abundant clay that they make their pottery with, and they ship that clay to every country today. The most beautiful pottery in Egypt. Well, the Sumerians, being that they're engineers, they know exactly what they're doing, so they built a high dam, and they only let a trickle of water through to the low dam. Locks, to the low waterfall. And that low waterfall, by the time it reached the low waterfall and the trickles of water was going back through, it was blood red. Okay? And then when it was blood red, it ran. The fish died. It ran into the piping. Yeah, there was kind of like piping going into the temples and into fountains and things like that, all through Egypt. Everybody had it. They had like indoor plumbing. Yeah, it turned like blood red, because that was the only water that was coming from the source of the Nile that was being piped in, and it had red clay in it that looked just like blood. Well, of course, because it was only a trickle of water, all the fish died in the Nile from that point down. And the flies came. After the flies came, after the flies came, the mosquitoes came. The pestilence that was talking about. And then when the next plague was frogs. The frogs came. It's easy to fool Moses and the Hebrews. And they told every Hebrew to stay inside. Put lamb's blood on the thing. There's going to be a day of Passover. As they systematically knew who every firstborn was. And they either suffocated them, poisoned them, leaving no evidence that they were ever killed by a knife or spear. So everything fell in place. And they had to have every Jew in the house afraid to come out, as they systematically killed every firstborn. Next, what happened? The Exodus. Where did all that gold come from? Come from Khufu's pyramid. They ran to the Red Sea, and God did build a tower of fire, that kept. They gave time for Him to split the ocean in two. The Red Sea split apart. Now, it's true, after a million Jews crossed over the Red Sea, it's very true that the waters that Pharaoh gave chase, Pharaoh's army gave chase. They gave chase, and then the waters came down on them, but none of them were killed. Not even a horse was killed, according to God, because God talks to me. He told me what happened. And He said, no, they drowned. They lost their spears. They lost their chariots, but they did not lose their horses. At least they did not lose any. No, it's according to God. No, they didn't lose any life was lost. They did not drown, but they did lose their weapons and they lost their chariots. You understand what I'm talking about? This is God's version of what happened. Now, if you want to argue the point or thing, you're not really going to have time to argue it. You will have time to argue it after September 21st, 2025, which is only 36 days away, 35 days away, I guess. What I'm trying to tell you, with 35 days left, this is the final judgment day, okay? Yom HaDin. Yom HaDin. You know the word. And I guess it's not me. I am only God's messenger. But who's inside me that's talking to me? It is your Messiah. Now, if you want to kill me, then that's fine. I'd just as soon go where everybody else is going. The dead in this world are not buried in the ground anymore. It's not where the spirits are. The spirits are inside us and our DNA. Okay, you understand what I'm saying? And I don't know, they're not leaving us, but their souls are being transported. Every soul that day is being transported. Catch this, Islam. Catch this, Jews. Catch this, Christians. On the September the 21st, God is going to be leaving. Why? After this, y'all going to work together. You got to work together. Jews, Islam, Muslims, everybody is going to be working together. We're going to go to the places and find out what's real and what's not, and find out what really went on throughout this world. And we're going to also investigate and figure out. There's this thing in quantum physics, okay? In quantum physics, God's been building a world that's opposite ours, that's been going as fast away from us, repelling us. It's an identical world. Identical world as ours. And it's repelling us as fast as every minute, every second. It's going way faster and faster. Because we've gotten further and further away from God, and it's closer and closer to the day of judgment. Now, during the day of judgment, it's not really a day of judgment. It is a way of judgment, because I asked this world for 9 billion thumbs up. And that's by God. The Jews better get busy too and figure out how to get those. Everybody better. Okay? Islam, you better help get those million thumbs up. Okay, I'm going to tell you why. Because the next step, we need that evidence. We need that, every bit of that evidence. That 100 billion thumbs up represents everybody in this world. 9 billion people. And we got to have 9 billion people that are ready for the next day to make a show. Nobody's going to doubt the power of God anymore. Do you remember the story of the Tower of Babel when he created 45 years ago, 4,200 years ago, okay? When God created languages, it was a simple solution to a bad problem. Okay? But Shem might have had forgotten the language of Noah and the language of Adam and Eve. Everybody might have had forgotten that. Shem, Ham, and Japheth. But they didn't, Noah wasn't there. Noah wasn't there, and Noah's family wasn't there. He was missing 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. He's also missing his grandchildren, which was Cush, Mizraim, Put, who, by the way, were born on the ark. Mizraim, Put, Canaan. They were all born on the ark. Their mother was a Nephilim. Okay? We're not going to go too much into that because I'll go into that afterwards. But this is, for the Jews, this is Yom HaDin. And the God in me might be the Messiah. Like I said, you can possibly kill me, and I wouldn't mind that. That's the best time to die. Because everybody that is dead, that's in our DNA, is going to, their spirits are going to finally find a home outside of us. That home, every animal in this world that's ever died, it's been in that world, brand new world. It looks, like I said, the prairies, every horse, cow, animal, they don't know wildness because nobody's ever hunted them, not even themselves. They are, let's like eating carrion, animals that already died naturally. Other than that, almost everything was herbivore. But the birds, like the buzzards and the wolves and things like that, they ate carrion, which is dead meat. They don't hunt each other. They live together in peace. Lions live with people, not with people, but with, animals that you wouldn't expect ever to be together in this world because they don't know, they're not wild, and they've been there that long. When you feel sorry for every dog that's died and every cat that's died and suffered, anything that's suffered, any pets, it's alive in that world immediately. I guess it's not I guess when Jesus said he's going to prepare a place with his Father, that's exactly the place where they've been. And it's you guys got together with the quantum physics. I want to learn that quantum physics. I need to find the answers to that. I got to put together a group of mathematicians that are Jewish, ones that are Arabic, Egyptians. I need to put together a group that'll work with me, and we'll find the truth mathematically to figure out exactly where that planet goes. But now here's the kicker: where the black hole is and the distance is between that planet and our planet will kind of diminish the time spent. It's got to do with time. The distance has to do with the time that it's running away from us. The black hole is simply taking out the middle, and it reverses itself the day after if we stay in peace and do what God says. In other words, we don't kill anymore. We don't steal anymore. We obey the 10 Commandments this time. And there'll be no reason for anybody to steal because everybody's going to be a millionaire. That's including the Jews. That's including everybody in Islam. That's including every Christian, okay? We're going to be just fine. That's what I come in. For Islam, I'm the Mahdi, okay? M-A-H-A-D, okay? I'm trying to say, I guess you would say I'm not the Messiah, but then, like I said, the God in me's the Messiah. And then all this is going to come together on September the 21st. Those red thumbs up that you give God is actually a signal to the world that the next day on the 22nd, know that first on the 21st, that everybody that's ever died in your DNA, the closest ones, are going to live physically, being transferred to that planet with domestic animals. Every animal's going to be domestic. And it'll be new to them, but they're not being born in the sense again, because they know what happens. They have their minds. They know how to make steel. They know how to make brick. They know how to make mortar. They know how to make center blocks. They know how to make steel. But now they got to find the resources because they're in a new planet. A new planet entirely that's never been mined. So everybody in the world knows how to do everything. They can build cars again. They can do anything they want again. But they have to get, it's going to be tough for a while because they have to get it together and organize. But there's knowledge is there. In other words, when they're in the new planet, they're not going to want to destroy it after everything they've been through. Okay? And that's what it's going to be called heaven. Now, my God and me started out just to make heaven on earth, and God didn't think that was a good idea. Why? Because my God really didn't comprehend what's going on. He's already preparing a place for us, for the dead. Okay? But for us to live out our days in peace, everybody's going to live out the day in peace. There's no hell at all anywhere. Hell is a condition. Okay? Hell is I've been through hell in my life. Everybody in this world's gone through hell in their life. Too many have lived in hell, just like myself. I've lived through hell, and I've been in hell. Psalms 139, you Jews. Even if I make my bed in hell, lo, God will be there. Even if I make my bed in hell. That's my choice. You understand what I'm saying? So it's a relative term. The fact that God lives in you, everybody should have figured that out. You can't blink an eye without God firing the synapses of your brain. God is life. The God inside us was born the same day we were born, so it has a limited knowledge of anything. Okay? The time it lived on this earth, it learns as much as it can. None of us know everything that God we the same things. We know same things. Many of us know the same things, but we don't know everything that everybody knows. Does that make sense? Now we're going to live on because the next day on after we're sure that all of our families that day on the 21st, that's the day of judgment on who gets on that planet. Okay? It's not everybody's going to be on that planet. They're not going to transfer the people that created chaos, hell. No, they're going to stay inside DNA, but they're going to behave themselves. Right? You know why they're going to behave themselves? They're not going to that other planet. God's not going to corrupt that other planet with evil people. The ones that weren't evil, they're going on to that other planet. In the Bible, which nobody agrees with, but it said the dead in Christ. What it should say, the dead in the believers. Okay? Not just Christ. The dead in the believers. The people that believed in God as well, in Jesus Christ. We put Jesus on too high of a level. He's not God. He wasn't God. He was a son of God. Who's inside us is a son or daughter of God. They look exactly like us. You want to know what they look like? Look in the mirror. The only difference is they don't have hands, feet, and a mouth. They're spirits. But we're not about to give hands and feet and mouth to somebody that's caused havoc on this world. So they're not going to be transferred to that world of domestic animals and green grass and beautiful blue sky. No. But the people that didn't cause any trouble, the people that are believers and things, so the dead believers in God that maintain their life, a good life, are going to live on that planet. You can be sure of that. Okay? What's that leave inside us? Pretty much every evil person in your bloodline. Okay? everybody's bloodline. Are they going to act up and take over? No. This is because that's what's going to happen the next day. The next day, with the sign of having 9 billion thumbs up for this idea. You're giving the idea for this idea. You're giving it to God the Father, but you're also giving it for the idea. Because that belongs to the God in me. Okay? He's the Savior. Okay? He's the one that wants to build heaven on earth, and is. For us to live out the rest of our days in peace. And what's going to happen is that's going to be God's coin. The next day, I'm going to announce on the 22nd, everybody in the world, go to any bank in the world and get open a God's coin account. Every bank, if they're smart, will transfer their funds. Every funds they have in the vaults, every funds that they have in the cash drawer, everything that they have there. Every banker, whether you're talking to your committees, your bosses, your branches, anywhere else, you best think on your own and empty your bank. Exchange every cent that you have in your cash drawer. In the United States, we're talking about. Well, actually, in the whole world. Go to any bank in the world and change it into God's coin at a rate of $100,000 for America. It'll cost for God's coin $100,000. In any other country that is under the how do you say, in the negative numbers. For instance, Burundi has 3 zeros, 0.0034. Okay? It takes $3,500 to make $1 US. But they're gonna but those countries, every country that's in negative numbers, will take 1 unit of their money. For instance, like in Burundi, the Burundian franc, the Egyptian pound, the Congolese franc. Any country, go to that bank and deposit those numbers. Go to the bank. If you have money in the banks are to, in those countries, are to exchange God's coin for 1 unit of their money, the Burundian franc. Just 1 Burundian franc. Okay? The Congolese franc. I guess it's a I can't think of it now, but it's anybody's currency. Just anybody's currency. Exchange it. I don't care if we're talking about the North Korean won and the South Korean won. They're going to put their numbers. It's going to be 1 won to get 1 God's coin. But in America, it's going to be $100,000 for a God's coin. Why is it going to be the American going to pay so much? Because they're going to go broke overnight. It's like, okay, there's $700 trillion in this world. $700 trillion. When you put that in a big fishbowl, not a fishbowl, but a big container, and you poke a hole inside it, with the $100,000 running out every second, okay? Elon Musk, you better be on the ball while that thing is full. While that container's at the top, you better be on the ball and ready to change all your $410 billion into God's coin. At best, you'll end up with $1 million, little over $1 million God's coin. If you divide okay, but as far as the world goes, that's 700 trillion is going to turn into 700 billion. Now there's 9 billion people in this world. I'm going to be redistributing that money as fast as I get it. And that means that means everybody's going to be a millionaire before the end of the day. And there'll still be money in the bank. In any bank, God's going bank. I am absorbing the $700 trillion in assets in this world. I don't want your businesses. I don't want you stay in control. Keep everything in control. But at the end of the day, that bank, the bank manager will be promoted to the president, earning 5 God's coins a day. The person under them will be bank managers. No matter how many bank managers you have, they'll get 4. Supervisors, no matter how many supervisors you have, they get 3. Team leaders, no matter how many you have, they get 2. And then you have your associates. No matter how many associates you have, they're free to the world. They walk in your door, you hire them. Say, do you want a job? If they don't know anything, they're associates, they can learn. Everybody in God's world is, in order to get that monthly income, which is upfront, which will pay upfront, like that 1 to 5 God's coin upfront, plus 1 every month. So the minimum salary is going to be $1,200,000 a year. You can live on that. The reason God's paying so much money, because we're going to restore this world to heaven. Everybody finds out where they want to live. Buy the parcel of ground, at a hectare of ground, 2.5 acres at least, to build a home, to build a beautiful business. Don't live right on top of each other. And build your businesses. Leave yourself room around you. Who's going to collect your money when I should be having the paperwork, but I'm not going to kill the paperwork. I'm saying nobody's going to be able to make the claim on it. There won't be any government left. Government's gone. It will be gone because everybody's going to be a voter. Every 18 years old to 70-year-old will get God's coin and work on a salary. They'll be in God's services. And when they're in God's services, means that if you do something wrong, you're going to get dropped. You're suspended from God's services, and whatever you've done is going to be investigated at your expense, and then you'll be indicted at your expense, and you'll do the time, and you'll do the restitution. And then once you straightened out and paid everybody, you go back to earning your God's coin. We don't take the whole family's God's coin. Everybody in the family, from a newborn baby to the oldest person in the household, is going to get a God's coin, $100,000. So we'll all be millionaires the next day. But you have to walk the line. You have to walk the line. Now, personally, in my ministry, for every God's coin that's given out, it's all got your name on it. You know, it's got done with your name, your birthplace, and your birth date. Okay, those 3 things are very hard to forge or get away with. You can't just give that name. But then, it's coincidence. But now the next thing is, we're going to have, you got the banks. Once you get to a bank, you got photos, you got fingerprints, you got everything. So this is what I'm saying is, you guys are going to, everybody's in this world is going to work by a debit card. You can buy a house on it, you buy the land, you can buy anything. Go buy you multiple brand new cars, $100,000 cars. Or you can buy $1 million car. If you're a person that's an executive that got 5 God's coin, you're going to be an instant millionaire anyway. You might as well go buy you $1 million car. You can build a castle on your ground. Better buy more than 2.5 acres. You understand? And then the caretakers, they're all working for God's service. Everybody's got to work. So those who choose to be maids, butlers, cooks, landscapers, gardeners, ranchers, anything you to run a whole farm, Now, this is what God's world's going to do. I'm not going to dwell on this. But you understand the world's going to be a different place. And there will be no killing, because that's where you went wrong starting out with. When Joshua crossed in to steal the land of milk and honey, and they had already stolen all that gold, that was the biggest mistake anybody's ever made. He went on a killing rampage. David, Saul, and Samuel. Y'all was totally bought into killing. You showed the world how to kill. Yeah, that's a great thing. No, it wasn't a great thing. It was the worst thing you could ever have done, because you was killing God's children living inside. Everyone. You don't think God did anything? God wasn't upset, but you know God can't. The reason God can't touch us and punish us, because inside everybody, even the meanest, nastiest person in the world, and the one doing the killing, is unborn, innocent, unborn, is innocent DNA. The ones that are getting out of here. Okay, does that leave you a clue? If they're gone and they don't need it anymore to protect it, that means God, he can destroy us at any time. We go wrong, because because everybody that is useful is going straight to that planet. They're unborn. The good in their DNA, but you're not going. God's going to then the hell might start for you, and there might be a real hell then. Who's to say? Why not? That'll be for the soul that kills, steals, uses the Lord thy God's name in vain. Remember the 10 Commandments? Yeah. And it's going to go for Islam, and it's going to go for the Muslims. It's going to go for everybody. Everybody's going to know that. Otherwise, you're going to lose your God's coin. You're going to rebel. Other things are going to happen in this world too. People that are gay. This what LBJ, GDQ, whatever it is. They're going to keep it to themselves, and they're not going to exploit their ways. In fact, if they be found out, they're going to be suspended until they go straight. Yeah, I'm a sole proprietor, and who's going to tell me, or God, that we can't do that? That's against the law. We don't obey that law. We only obey God's law. If anything, I'm a Bedouin. We don't follow the law like everybody else. We follow God's law. I spent some time with the Bedouin, and I learned something about the Bedouin. They do things that are against the Quran, at least the HaDin. They're not against the Quran, they're against the HaDin. The Sharia laws and things like that. They don't abide by man's extra laws, the Hadith. The Hadith says, and the Jews, they say you can't eat pork. Unclean food. You can't eat this. You can't eat that. Those are laws that were created by man. God loves barbecue, and he loves pork chops. God loves beer. Okay, you understand what I'm saying? In fact, all of Egypt drank beer building the pyramids. It was the Sumerians that taught them to make the beer, to keep them from drinking the poison waters of the Nile, full of everything from typhoid, dysentery, botulism, anything, parasites. People were dying right and left drinking the water from the Nile. But then when they showed them how to make fermented, added honey to water and let it ferment, guess what? Every Egyptian was drinking beer. That was their salary. Besides the food. That's why anybody was in Egypt starting out with this, because they had food. They had agriculture. And it was all free labor. That's why Jesus, not Jesus, but Pharaoh, he welcomed, but he didn't actually welcome, but he didn't show his love in that way, in a sense. In a sense, he did, because they were even the Egyptians, the Semites, and the Egyptians that did good, and like that, he would allow them to have jewelry, trinkets, necklaces, rings, everything like that, and bargain for them. Okay? Now, when I was talking about the Bedouins do the same. The Bedouins kind of like, they gamble. But they never gamble for anything worth anything. They gamble over sticks. They gamble over rocks. They gamble over anything like that. But they won't. But they gamble. They make moonshine. Guess what? They make beer. They don't live by our laws. You know what I'm saying? They live by Allah's laws. This is what I'm trying to say. There's another world going to be created out there the day after, on 22nd. But we need those thumbs up to surprise the world, to show the world, because the rest of the world the next day cannot take any currency from anybody. The banks will be insured. The word is called undermined. Undermined every currency. God's going to undermine everybody's currency in the world, and the only currency will be God's coin. Everybody has no choice. Within 24 hours of any stock exchange going off and the ringing of the bell, before the closing bell that day, everybody's thing will be at zero. Currency will be at zero. The only money there'll be is God's coin. So you best get rid of the God's coin while everything's full at the best value. The longer you wait, every second is pouring out and dropping down to nothing. Okay? Now, as far as the rest of the world that has no money, they got a job and they're getting the money. Every newborn in a household to the oldest person, as said, will get a God's coin. What's worth $100,000. Even the person in the United States, where the dollar is going to be hit the most, its value is going to drop to nothing. But this God's coin is going to soar. But it's going to cost them $100,000. They're not going to have as much God's coin as in Burundi or Ethiopia. You know what I'm saying? If it has to be, and we don't get everybody going along with it, we will start only. Nobody in any country will be able to buy God's coin. I simply won't sell it to them until Burundi. Here's the deal. I'm going to say too, to Satoshi Nakamoto and all Bitcoin owners, there's 106,000 Bitcoin owners in this world. I'll trade you 10 God's coin per Bitcoin. Like, you understand what I'm saying? At one point, it was God said 100, and it might turn out to be 100. But you're going to trade what God's coin you have for Bitcoin, and that money's not going to be changed into God's coin. Those Bitcoin are going to remain that value, the same value, but they're going straight to Palestine, and that's going to be Palestine's currency, Bitcoin, and they're going to get God's coin too, for what they've been through. And by the way, the Jews don't even think about keeping Jerusalem. You're out of there. Don't even think about that place as being yours anymore. Unless, I mean, I'm not going to say you're not out of there. You're there, but you're going to assimilate. You're going to assimilate with the Palestinians. You're going to assimilate. Because those that truly want to live in the Holy Land, you're going to assimilate with them. You understand what I'm saying? There won't be any more trouble, or there won't be any more hate, and there won't be any more things. We're going to all assimilate. I personally am going on a crusade. And we, with mathematicians, with Jews, with Christians, with witnesses, and my own believers that believed in me. So they see firsthand what really happened in this world and investigate. There's things that you need to know about. We'll talk about that later. But here, in this conversation that we're having now, September the 21st, 2025, is Yom HaDin. Okay? This is the first judgment. They still have what, Yom Hashanah, Yom Kipper coming. That's in death. We're not dead, going to be dead yet. Nobody's going to die. All you're going to do is stay on the same job you're at right now and earn God's coin. You're going to be millionaires on the 22nd or 23rd. Everybody will. But better everybody behave. And what I told you about your sexual preferences and stuff, keep it to yourself. Don't try to get others into it and keep it hid. You might have problems if you come out the closet this time. Okay, I'm going to leave you at that. And I'm going to address this thing on YouTube as being September 21st, 2025 is Yom HaDin. Okay? So you recognize the Jews. Good night.